our Celebrate Madison event and the
compliance
opportunity to
portion
come
to meet the standards Major League Baseball has given us, which would be what
there's
we
a
call
lot of
the
pressure
clubhouse,
standing up here right now. Not
which
because
would
I have what I
be
have to
in the
talk about.
neighborhood of
That's pretty
somewhere
easy
between
because I'm in
$6.5,
between you,
$6.8 million here or
T-shirt
there,
launches and
depending
fireworks.
on contingencies and things like
I know
that.
I'm going to.
The second portion that council would have the ability to support would be a Clubhouse Plus, which is adding 3 stories to that, on top of that, which in turn is a revenue generating piece that gives the Ball Corps team additional areas where they can generate revenue for the city. That is more in the $22 million range, and in turn would need financing. So the first part of it, in talking with our Director of Finance, Roger Bellamy, can be paid for by cash. The second part is in addition to, and would be a bond. And so we have Rush Rice here, who we use as our advisor, as you guys all know, who can in turn help us understand what that looks like and go from there. And I guess, Connie, would you want to take any part from that as far as kind of some of the discussions we've had?
Well, thank you. So we have received from Rush a memo, and all of y'all have received a copy of it, of what it looks like as far as long-term bond structure and what we're looking at as far as what the debt service would be, et cetera. But I was wondering, Rush, could you kind of just walk us through what we would have to do as far as going to the bond market? That'd be great. Thank you.
When I go to the spreadsheet, I'll go there. Thanks for having me up. This is a project that is it's analysis intensive. It's got a lot of moving parts. This is something that is a the ballpark and the Trash Pandas are great assets to Madison and to this region. I was with another client in Scottsboro earlier today, and the director of sales for the Trash Pandas was there talking to the Rotary Club meeting that I was at. And he was selling hard. He did a great job. We looked at this from we've spent a lot of time here on this, and we first wanted to look at this from the standpoint and the premise that these are improvements that will increase the number of people who patronize the stadium. Not only baseball, but other events. Not only minor league baseball, but other, softball tournaments and different social events, concerts, college football, bowl game. We looked at, so Ball Corp made a series of analyses that we kind of picked apart where they tried to forecast these will be the additional revenues that would be generated. I call this the delta. The revenues that would be generated from the new improvements that are over and above what we're already bringing in. The premise there was that, hey, this will pay for itself. So we wanted to test that, test that statement. We found that their assumptions and a lot of the projections they made were actually quite reasonable. Seemed to me to be fair, but we researched, the other minor league city. We tried to find comparable places. We looked at Chattanooga. We looked at Montgomery, which we had access to full, data on the biscuits down there, and we found their projections to be conservative. The question that we asked ourselves, would the delta, would that additional revenue be able to be sufficient to cover the money we'd have to borrow to build it as the landlord? These are tenant improvements. They're nothing more, nothing less. These are tenant improvements that our tenant is asking us to do so that they can make more money, and presumably Madison would make more money. We found that it was reasonable, but then Paul and Greg and some others said, what about the $6.8 million check we're going to have to write for this thing? And I said, really, we should be looking at this like a real estate developer would look at it, like a business person would look at it. What is the return? The 6.8, effectively our equity. These are the improvements that the city has to make to keep the major league affiliated AA team here. So that's a given. Well, what would be our return on equity? It would be the analysis there, because that's in effect our equity that we're putting. The rest we're going to borrow. The debt we think would be self-amortizing. The improvements, and we were also very conservative. We didn't go. We applied a 3% annual growth rate to things. Well, nothing in Madison ever grows by 3% a year. Things in Madison grow by 10% a year, 20% a year. But you can't predict that would go on forever. So we tried to be conservative, and then when we the other thing that we looked at was, we've had since March of 2022, now for a little over 2 years, we've had a significant uptick in interest rates. We've had some easing. Rates kind of started back in the fall and early part of this year to drop, thinking that the Federal Reserve might loosen Fed policy, but that has not been the case. The most recent Fed meeting actually caused a kind of a bad reaction in the bond market. So we've had rates go up, long-term rates go up again. So with that puts pressure on our timetable. If we could do this thing and finance the improvements at 3%, I would be standing here saying, what are we waiting for? This would be a great deal. But this could be, when I did this analysis last week, Mayor, it was, we were thinking it would be around 5.25%. I looked at the market yesterday. We'd be 5.5%, and that is for AA plus rated taxable bond deals. We looked at working with Preston Bolt at Hand Arundel, looked for, one way to reduce that interest rate would be to figure out how to do some of this tax exempt. Because of the structure of our agreement with Ballcorp, the bonds to build the stadium were taxable, untaxable at a very low rate. The timing was good on that, but taxable nevertheless. You could get some of this done tax exempt, but it would require significant concessions from Ballcorp. It would mean they would have to go to what's called a qualified management contract, meaning that it would have to be their tenancy at the ballpark would have to be bid out periodically. I don't think they're going to. That's not something that would fly. They've got a long-term commitment here. We've got a deal. Why would they? Change it just so we could. So one thing that'll reduce the interest rate, I think, is some time. We don't think rates have much more upward run in them. We do know. I've been doing this now for 38 years, and I don't know when, but the only thing I know for sure is that interest rates go up and they go down. And so they've gone up. At some point in the future, they will go down. So if this could be timed to the extent that the improvements that have to be done now can be done, we can get the project designed, maybe even enter into some contracts to fix the costs of steel or concrete or any kind of thing, like things that we could do in the interim while we wait for rates to come down. But right now, it's kind of skinny. And if you'd like, I'd like to kind of demonstrate and show you, because we can. This is a very simple little cash flow model. What we're trying to do here, I'm not real good with the trackpad. I'm kind of
Rush, they're going to bring you a microphone.
okay.
Thank you.
I'm kind of a mouse guy. Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The inputs here in the yellow fields are the things we're going to play with. The project cost we're going to leave alone. It kind of is what it is. The city would be putting $6.8 million in. That would be we're going to use a 3% inflation rate, and that's not CPI. That's kind of the better term probably would be a 3% growth rate in revenues out there. That will go, prices will go up. You know, I don't know how much a beer costs at Toyota Field now, but in 5 years it's going to cost more. We know that. We used here an interest rate of 5.25%. And then when we calculate a discounted cash flow and net present value, which is it took several professors at the University of Alabama a long time to explain the time value of money to me, so I will just, but needless to say, we want that number to be a positive number. That's what we want. So we usually use for our discount factor for a municipality, for a corporation, I would use that corporation's internal rate of return. If a corporation has some money, what are we going to make on our money? If we had, you know, if we were going to make an investment, what would induce me to invest my capital? I might want to make a 15% return. So I might use a 15%, but here it's not the mission of the city of Madison to earn profits. Pay dividends. You're here to provide city services at the lowest possible cost. So I always use the same rate for my discount factor as I use on the cost of the debt. What you come out with here is the cash flow is skinny. Okay? As you see that go across, this is in thousands. It gradually goes up, but this is not a lot to write home about. But the discounted cash flow, the net present value, is about $1.6 million. That's the present value of all of these cash flows, and it goes out there another few years to the right. That goes out to 2048. It's a total of about $6.8 million that the city would benefit, but at present value, that's about $1.6 million using these calculations. And then what you would do is if this were a project you were considering doing, you would say, okay, let's take the discounted cash flow and we'll subtract from that the money we put in on the front end, which is 6.8, which then comes back to a negative number. So that's something right there that is something that would be a caution light right there. They say, well, okay, this has got the potential to not be a great deal. You have to go back, but what people can do is, you know, you can make numbers do whatever you want to make them do. If you go up here and change this growth rate, let's see if I can do that. Let's make that 5%. All right? Did it change? Yeah. Okay, that took that negative $5 million down to only a negative $1 million if we got 5% growth. All right. What if it grew? Wish I did a trackpad better. What if we had 10% growth? Well, looky there. That's a net present value of $14 million. But you're playing a dangerous game there when you're going to project a constant 10% growth rate in your revenue stream. So that's something that, you know, makes this over time. If you got a 3% growth rate in revenues, that's in an enterprise like that would be pretty solid, which makes the decision easier. So then, but then here's another thing. So if we could wait on this, instead of borrowing the money at that, okay, and let's look. I want you to watch. Let's see. I want you to watch this line right here, which is the average debt service per year is $1.155 million. Okay, that is $15.8 million. Right, at 5.25% through 2048, which is the term of the remaining term of the Ball Corp contract. Okay, so we're going to go up there. We're going to change this rate up here from 5.25 to 3.5. All right. Debt service just dropped by $200,000 a year, and your NPV still a deficit right there, but it's dropped from almost $6 million to just 2.6. So that's a and then another, what we would do also is we would also change our discount factor. All right, we don't want to tell the period from the comma. There we are. Okay. Makes it look a little better. Still not into the black. Still in the red a little bit, but better. So you see that what the big numbers that seem to drive this is the interest rate on the bonds and that kind of that growth rate right there. And so it's it's kind of a that's a decision, then whether to proceed is something that is always tell everybody. I've managed to stay in this business a long time because I don't have to ever stand for election. You all do, and so if I had to be elected to this, I would have been voted out a long time ago. But this is a political decision that could very well prove to be a good one. I would like to also add that one of the things that is not included in this analysis, because we can't really pin it down, is we don't have in here, what we have in our analysis is the sales tax. For example, the sales tax on the beer bought inside the stadium, but we don't have the sales tax on that beer that is bought outside the stadium before or after the game. We have we have used some of their stuff, some of their assumptions. We skinnied back some, but there would be indirect benefits, but we don't have indirect benefits in this analysis.
So what you're saying is, if the additional people that came into town, if they went out to dinner beforehand, or they stayed in a hotel, or they went by and purchased some cookies from Edgar's, or whatever they did outside the stadium, though that increase is not predictable, and we don't have it in this. That's what you're saying.
It's not in here. The only thing we did, Connie, that's a great question. The only thing we did add is the lodging taxes, because we have a basis of knowing, when they have planned events, say, of a softball tournament with X number of teams. So we can make some pretty good assumptions as to how many people are coming to Madison. They're going to want to live they're going to stay near where they're playing, so they're going to concentrate in Madison. So we do have the lodging taxes, okay, our estimates of lodging taxes in here. But when they all go out to eat, when the whole van load of them goes and eat, that sales tax is not in the analysis.
And they're not guaranteed to stay near the ballpark. They may want to stay at the Space and Rocket Center, Marriott, or somewhere else. So that's not guaranteed.
That's right. There are no guarantees there. So it's I think the two things that would be, and there are things that can happen to make this work. One would be to reduce the interest rate, which would have to be done by waiting for rates to come down, or by finding some way to do a part of this tax exempt, which might not be something that Ball Corp would agree to. I wouldn't if I were them. So that, to get the rate down, time is our friend. and then, I don't want to I'm not an engineer or an architect. I mean, skinnying the project back might help, but then the baseball people know what they want. They know what they want, what they put out there. So I'm not going to tell them to make it. Don't do 3 stories, do 2. That might not even save any money. So.
I do have a question, and Mary Beth probably can answer this. Mary Beth, the new season changed over, the 3-year commitment from when people first bought their season tickets. This is like the new year where people could decide not to get them, or I know friends that have moved around. Are we at 100% capacity for each of the current suites for the entire season? Oh, okay, sure.
Can you come to the microphone?
I'm sorry, Garrett. Thank you. That way everyone can hear at home. Thank you for being here tonight.
The question is on the suites upstairs?
Yes.
Yeah, so we sell we have 15 suites, 14 regular suites, and then a double suite. We hold back suites 11 through 15 for like individual group nights. Okay. And then 1 through 10 we sell to corporations. 1 through 10 are sold, for the whole entire year, and then the suites 11 through 15 will be sold every single night for the whole entire year.
Okay. So there will be 100% commitment for the suites.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. There might be a one-off here or there. Day games usually a little harder to sell those to groups and stuff like that, but for the most part, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Very high, yeah. And that goes for all of our hospitality areas. The concourse suites, picnic, the party deck is sold out for the year already.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I had a question. How many people will fit into the 7 suites? What is your...
I think the way it's designed right now, I think they're for 25 a person, or 25 people per suite for the, when you say the 7, are you talking about for the new building?
Well, yeah, for the, what we could look forward to. So each suite's only going to bring in 25 people?
25 people for I think it's suites 1 through 6, and then I think that the last one, number 7, is 50. So it's a double suite.
Okay. Well, then that brings up a lot of questions for the numbers that we were giving about ball court and the estimate of the new city values and stuff. And if those suites only hold...
You're talking about this, there's a level of 7 suites, and then there's
which have 200 per.
What's that?
200 max per.
Oh, there's 3 levels, yeah. So the one up, the rooftop party deck is like 250, 300 people, and then the club level is about 250 to 300 people, and then the suite level is what you're referring to with the 7 suites.
Yeah, because that isn't something that is included with what money that the city gets, right? That's what y'all get.
They get $1. Yeah, the city gets $1 per ticket.
$1 per ticket, so it's 25 per
suite.
$25.
Yeah. So what is that?
Okay. Then how did you come up with a lot of these numbers where you say 10 concerts at an average 1,000 extra attendance? Well, where are those 1,000 people going to be if there's only 25 people per suite? And well, these numbers here were showing a max of 400. So where are all those people going to be?
Yeah, so it's multiplied by 69 games, and it's roughly, what is it?
So this has to do, I'm sorry, I should be more specific. You have 10 concerts with an average of 1,000 in attendance. Yeah. So where are you putting?
Are you familiar with the center field entrance of the ballpark?
Yeah, but I'm looking at what you plan on us making.
Yeah.
With the addition.
I'm trying to tell you where that 1,000 people are going. Are you familiar with the center field entrance of the ballpark? Okay, so you walk in the center field entrance of the ballpark on the left is where the stage would be facing the side of this new building. So that whole entire plaza, kind of where the flagpoles and the kids zone and all that stuff is, that's where the concert would take place. And then that building facing the concert is a wraparound on the sides where the club level, the suite level, the rooftop level, and everything would be facing the concert stage.
Well, I guess I'm still confused on where you're telling me with these numbers, and that's what I have to go by, but yet you're saying the concert's going to be a bigger area. because 1,000 people are going to sit in this area. Well, those 1,000 people could be there even if we did not build these suites then.
It wouldn't be an ideal spot to have a concert if it's just a wide open concourse.
Okay, so you don't really have it for the whole stadium when you have the concert. These concerts would be just for the suite people?
This would
That
just be
area?
for that center field area.
Okay. Do we have any contracts for any of these concerts?
I don't have a building yet, so no.
Okay, well, so a lot of that would just be speculative whether we can get them. I know you want to and all that. I'm just saying, as far as if my job depended on it and I had to put this in and I was saying, well, yeah, we hope to have all this, but I have no contract for it, I would be fired. Okay, so I'm just asking, do we have
I do not have
anything?
a concert for, I don't have concert contracts for 2027 yet.
Okay, do we have any?
Garrett, when we built the stadium, when we built it and you brought the baseball team and before we committed to that, did you have any tickets sold?
No.
Okay, thanks.
We did.
Come on, Karen.
No, I am.
He's giving you his best guess.
Right, but
You
these
can
are best
pick it apart
guesses.
line by line, but this
I'm
is
hoping
their
we do
best
15
guess.
concerts, but we're just.
Okay, you're
Valid
asking
question.
me to
Valid
commit
question.
the taxpayers' money.
I agree.
I have to make sure that the taxpayers will not be held for a bunch of to pay off the 20 million or whatever it is
That's a valid question.
without the money coming directly from what's being built. That's my question. I don't see that as being in
No, it's a valid question. I'm just saying this is what we have 10 homes, or we have 11 home stands. So I'd like that when the team is away for 11, that's kind of where we got the numbers. Like, all right, when the team is away on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we can potentially have these concerts during the season. That's what we'd like to do.
Okay.
Using that building as the backdrop of the concert.
Okay. Well, what I have here, how about the football games?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any contracts on any of those?
Nope.
Okay. And then once they come in, I mean, last time we were able to do it because you had to tear up the field anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are we going to have to tear up the field after we have these football games? And are we going to have maintenance to do that because we have extra costs because they tore them up because they had football?
Will we have to make a baseball field into a football field?
Well, yeah, because last time we had a half, okay, and it was okay to do that because we were going to have to replace all the sod anyway. Yeah. Okay, so this time you're telling me we're going to have the football games. Who's going to then be paying for the replacement of the sod and maintenance of these beautiful baseball fields afterwards?
Well,
is that going to fall on the city, or is that going to?
Well, we share the revenues with the city and the expenses with the city when we do these events.
Oh, so you will be chipping in money to replace the sod and that sort of thing too?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is that?
That's an expense.
Heard of that? You're looking at me like I don't know.
And this time around for football, we would not be replacing the whole entire field. We would just be sodding the infield, what we call the skin, the dirt part, and then we would take that turf out on the infield and putting it back to baseball.
Okay. And then the two high school football games. I don't know. I'm picking it apart, Mayor, because again, I just wanted to have a clear understanding of exactly what numbers have gone into this, and I had a lot of questions when I look at it. And you're expecting to bring in $686,000 a year. That's a big chunk of money in order to come up with the 1.03 that we've been dealing
All
with.
projections.
Yes.
They're all
It's
projections.
the best case. I mean,
But expecting somebody to have a contract
That was my
for something that doesn't exist yet is not a reasonable thing.
But you're asking us to go into debt to pay for it
I
now.
haven't asked you to do
Well,
anything
the
yet.
question is out there.
And we are going to be making this decision together.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Garrett has answered the questions. I think that maybe what we need to do is ask Rush to now give us his suggestion as to whether or not this is a good idea. I think we all know that right now this is probably not the best idea. We need to wait on interest rates. So picking Garrett apart at this moment is not serving any real purpose except for
I think they're very,
Excuse
very
me if
valid
it's
questions.
coming across as picking you apart. That is not my intent at all. I'm actually just trying to get a firm understanding of where the money would definitely be coming from, so we are not putting the taxpayer at risk in this whole thing.
If I may, just like
That's all.
when we're presented, when Major League Baseball presented us with this basically almost $7 million bill, I had to come up with how can we help pay for this? How can we make, all right, if we go up and get some revenue, what can we do if we have a building like this? And that's where these numbers, we could do the concerts, we could do football, we could do, sell these tickets for, during the Alabama and Auburn baseball games, if we have softball tournaments and stuff like that. That's how we came up with, yes, we can do these things with this building to help pay for all 4 stories. Because right now we're $7 million sunk. How can we come back and work harder, do more events, do more things to help pay for that structure? That's how we're coming up with these things. So, Mr. Seaver, you had a question?
Yeah, Dave. You want to ask yours, Ted?
You go ahead. I've got comments and a couple questions.
Okay. When we did the football game in there previously, because of the length, we couldn't go both ways. We had everybody go the one way. Is that planning to be rectified with this? That I would think would allow you to maybe attract a larger for the college football, those things. That's part of this?
That's part of it. The bullpen fence would be where the home run fence is currently. That would be removable. Okay. You can actually set that and put that back towards the back wall. And then also, I guess we call it, the Lexus sign is concrete behind there. That's what's stopping us right now. Yeah. And that would be a temporary fence there and behind it. So that would be able to move back, and we would be able to have a full football stadium, football field.
All right.
You're doing that with the 6.8 or for the other extension?
I guess we'd have to ask how that would work with if they just built the one. So
It's done with the 6.8, isn't it?
Mary Beth, can you come to the microphone, please?
Sounds like we're getting a no over there on the side.
I think the $6.8 million cost doesn't reflect us moving all of those things to accommodate a football field. We only did that with the full build, is what Gerald is confirming. So if we want to, if the decision is to go forward with just the clubhouse level and you want that to be built in a way that we can do the football field, then we will add that in. We'd have to add that in and have the architect, tweak the plan a little bit.
The genesis for the question was more of getting to some of the credibility of the numbers and the mark, how you draw the business, right? If you can only go one way, you're probably not as attractive to some other venues that might draw larger revenue.
Allow us to do it again. NCAA gave us just a one-time exemption.
Oh, did they? Okay. All right. Refresh my memory on the sod. Mm-hmm. So I thought when we made the sod replacements on the field, it was because of another issue, not necessarily the football.
Right.
And also, having done understand football fields and baseball fields, replacing the sod's probably a pretty frequent thing that you got to do over time, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say it's about probably 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. Depends on. Yeah. I mean, you could go forever. It's just the playability and again with Major League Baseball coming out and I mean literally sticking yardsticks on the lips of the surfaces and stuff like that. They're grading us every year.
I guess. Thank you. That's all I had.
Did you have something?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, thank you for being here. And I want to just take us back to get to projections so we understand what we're doing here, right? How long have you been with Trash Pandas? How long have you been involved?
I moved here in June of 19, so during construction.
So you were here during construction. You were here when Ralph was here. You were here when we had the pandemic. You've been here the entire time.
Yeah, since construction. I wasn't here to plan the. Right. I don't want to take Mary Beth's thunder of design.
My point is you've seen some things and some projections we didn't make. Oh, yeah. We didn't make the projection that the partner we had in Ralph would change. We didn't make the projection that COVID would come. But what we did do is we put some safe things in place that would cover that. And even with us doing that, you know, it was a great idea, and I'm glad that it worked out the way it did. But I can tell you, had it not been for the effort that you guys did during the pandemic, I mean, coming up with, I mean, just different things.
I'm not saying, no, they did wonderful. I'm not saying that at all.
Well, I'm not even getting into that. I'm just telling you about projections. I mean, you just can't make those all the time that are give you solid, concrete information. I mean, one thing I've learned on council, and Garrett, I'm done if you'd like to say it. One thing I've learned being on council is, you know, you're making a decision right now, today, with half of the information maybe for something that's going to happen 30 years down the road. There's a risk in that. And, you know, you have to do that with the best of intentions. You have to do it with the taxpayers in mind, and you have to make a business decision. And the numbers, you know, the numbers are what the numbers are, and you can change those numbers. I mean, I'll give you an instance, and that's my comment. But my question, Russ, is the 22.6 million includes that 6.8. Can you zero all that out and show me what it would look like with a 6.8?
I may leave $1 in that field. Sometimes when I put a zero, it'll. All right. One sec. My bad.
So basically, we just have to zero. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can.
There. Okay. What that does right there is zeroes out the debt side of it. But what I just to caution you, that gives you obviously a big, you know, a big net present value, you know, 16 million of present value cash flow less your 6.8. That would be a good investment. But I'm not sure these can all be achieved with that. So what I would do is make a change here, Teddy.
Correct.
That's with 100% of the planned events. Okay. That's kind of the new stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
So
make
zero.
Let's
right?
make this 0. Okay. Now this still is a positive number. There are people that would tell you that a net present value of $1 is a green light. There are people now I'm not among that number, but I've had people tell me, you know, even if it's positive a buck, because the actual cash flow is $10 million less that, you know, so it's got some, you know, you're generating cash.
Well, but I think something we have to understand here that the model's not doing is you don't get interest on that. You spend that $6.8 million, it's gone, it's done,
Correct.
Zeroed out. So you get zero.
Well, I'm depleting it all at once. So
right.
We're not including any interest earned on that 6.8 million.
So I guess that's what I'm saying. Those revenues are not going to increase just because we build this $6.8 million facility.
You're correct.
I mean, it's just
we can't vouch for if the project is built as the analysis has assumed that the project is built, and so this makes everything up here. That's what we spent a tremendous amount of time vetting and going through to make sure that seemed to us. Yes, it's a forecast, but we deemed it to be fair and reasonable.
Right.
That we would take, for example, a concert with 1,000 tickets sold would result in 25 hotel stays. That's a real conservative number. I thought everything that Ballcorp provided for us, projection-wise, was that there was nothing that jumped out at me as something that as being a little overly aggressive. I thought their forecasting was good. But all of this number up here, right? Everything up here, that's the delta. That's what that's the extra money that's going to come from the new additions.
Well, I guess, so let me ask this a different direction. If we build just the bottom portion, it only does one thing. It has no people coming to it.
Nobody's going to pay to go to the
So all those numbers out there go away.
They just go away.
So it becomes zero straight across. Right. So we spend $6.8 million. We get no return on investment. We get nothing.
You get to keep your baseball team.
Well, that's it.
Then we get to keep earning money through our baseball team.
We earn the money that we're earning is the point.
Right.
Okay. So that now if we just include there instead of the 22, if we include the 18, is it 18? Is that what it was?
I think 16.
16, whatever the number is to go from 2 to 4, the additionals. We're going to spend $6.8 million regardless, period.
Right.
All right. Then we have floor 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
What we're trying to do here is, will floor 2, 3, and floor 4 pay for itself? It doesn't have to pay for that 6.8. You're going to pay. You're paying that 6.8.
Yeah, well, then, Teddy, I mean, one way to look at it then would be
You're doing that calculation at the bottom.
It's
Huh?
down here.
You're doing that net calculation.
Yeah, it's down here. It's got to. If you took that out,
Correct.
When that equals zero.
Net present, an NPV over $1 million, which
Correct.
is thin, but it's a positive number.
Right.
That's a very good way to look at it.
Yeah. So if you do that, then basically after year 5 or 6, right in there, you start a positive cash flow. Is that correct?
Yes, and I would also, I'd go back to the thought that we're not including that, busload of softball players that's eating dinner somewhere, and the sales tax off of that is not in here either. So I would say, if you took the value of your equity out of your equation, is this something we have to do regardless? Then, then it has some positives.
Okay.
We've been looking at that 6.8 is just we still believe, we've come to the conclusion, in working through this for quite a while, if somebody said to me, Rush, would you do this? I would say, I can't answer that because I don't have to stand for re-election. But if you were going to make me mayor for life, I'd say, sure, I'd do it.
No risk there.
Nobody's going to be mayor for life. You might be mayor for the next 2 weeks if it didn't work out. But it's the everything up here. Karen, everything up here in the forecast we've been through and we believe this is all very, very, very reasonable. It's that number. The size of the project has grown since the last time we first started looking at this. The $23 million project was going to be how much, Mary Beth? It was going to be 15 or 16 total, 17 total, which that makes a let's call it, if we could do the whole thing for okay. All right. There you have it. Out of dead square.
And that's, of course, at today's rates.
And that's at today's rates. And if we're going to do a $17 million project and we're going to do it at 4%, suddenly you've got something with a net present value of that. It's a different, as we say in Montgomery, a different breed of cat.
Mm-hmm.
So you went from 22 million to 17 million?
Hypothetically. When we first started looking at this, the project was about $17 million.
Okay, but that's not realistic anymore,
No.
right? Okay.
Unless the project could somehow be You know, but I'm not, as I said earlier, I'm not an architect or an engineer. I couldn't tell you, you know, I can't wave my wand and say, well, we can't do a $23 million project. We can do a 17. It might not work at all. It might, you know,
And Teddy, I understand what you're saying about if we do the $6 million one, we don't get anything. But we also are not risking that difference between $6 million and $22 million. Okay, and we can be spending that money on roads. We can be spending it on a lot of other things. You're putting away opportunity costs by putting all that money into the stadium instead of just doing the $6.5 million, and then having that money to spend in other places.
It doesn't work that way.
No, it does not work that way. And Karen, so Russ, just for the sake of argument here, just let's keep it at 22 million. I'm just trying to make a point. So if we can go to 22 million and go to say 4.75, which is probably reasonable that they'll do 2 basis points and drop it down. That's probably, you know, inflation's going to stay about where it's at.
Excuse me, sir. Would you take the food or would you take an iPhone?
I don't know. I think what.
All right, go ahead and grab it.
I think that's reasonable.
All right, man. God bless you. Excuse me, sir. I am so sorry to bother you. Would you take the iPhone or would you take some food?
Because it's at 5.5 now, right?
where we'd be right now.
And there's no guarantee that a year from now it won't be 6.5.
There's not. I mean, none of this is guaranteed. I'm just trying to get an idea.
My concern right now is just that the market is so volatile. The whole world is so volatile. We don't know, you know, what the future holds. We know who holds the future. So my question is, can we do the 6.8 million? We know we have to meet those MILB requirements. Can we do those with the idea that we will come back and do this Clubhouse Plus? So in other words, can we construct the clubhouse so that it's easy to add that second floor to the attic, so to speak, and hold off on doing this until maybe after the election, till the market settles?
I don't know what election you're referring to.
Oh, it's just kind of a rambling sort of question.
But yes, the cost for just the clubhouse includes a beefed up foundation so that if a decision were made to build on top of that clubhouse in the future, that could be accommodated structurally. Of course, there is a cost increase, right? The longer we wait, the longer typically material costs go up. When Gerald was doing the cost estimating, he did have the consultant look at, you know, if we didn't build it all right now, what might that additional cost be? And again, you know, you don't know if you're building it in 2 years or 5 years, but, you know, at least an additional $1 million if you don't build it all at one time. And so close to $1 million, I should say. And then as we were discussing earlier, it looked like when Gerald did the cost estimating, for just the clubhouse of moving everything so we could accommodate a football field wasn't included in just the clubhouse cost. So we're going to have to go back and look at that. I don't know that it's all that significant, but yes, you could build on top.
Okay, is it possible? So I'm going to ask you a question I probably already know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is it possible to get the drawings and the design done for phase 1 being the clubhouse and the football field adjustments, and phase 2 being second, third, fourth floors?
It is. My hesitation on doing that is the timing, because codes change, and you know, we adopt updated building codes, updated fire codes. So we could do it. Sometimes the changes in the codes are fairly minimal. But if we were to have those plans drawn now, you would just need to be aware that if, you know, the city didn't build for 3 years, for example, and we've got a new fire code and building code, then an architect's going to need to go in and revise those plans.
Revising a drawing is cheaper than drawing it from scratch.
Yeah. So certainly it is. We could do that. I don't know, Gerald, if you have any other hesitation that you could think of besides codes changing. Yeah.
So, okay, the reason why I'm asking the question is because it's going to take, 2 years to build this?
Well, the plans themselves won't be complete. Like if we were to get a green light at your next council meeting for whichever level, The plans wouldn't be complete until the fall, until probably October, and then we've got to go through a bid process, which we were hoping to do in the fall because bidding typically is better in the fall. And then clubhouse build would be at least a year.
Okay, and so
during the season,
and
We're going to have to, we're not going to make the 26th season, even if we just do the clubhouse. I don't feel.
according to the experts I saw this morning on the TV, take them for whatever they're worth. Probably by the end of the year, they're predicting there'll be some change in the interest rates. So theoretically, go with me down this yellow brick road, okay?
Yep.
So theoretically, if we had the drawings and all of the plans ready to go, we green-lighted the base model.
Mm-hmm.
Then, as we're getting to the point where we're going to be breaking ground, or ready to go vertical, or whatever the phrase is, then we see that the interest rates are going down and have this ready to go, we could possibly find a window to make this work.
So, right. So under that scenario, what we would recommend, I think, is that we prepare 2 sets of plans, as you were describing, a clubhouse plus, have the architect do all of that. And prior to putting it out to bid, which we would again hope to be doing no later than November, I think we would need to make the decision. You all would need to make that decision. And as you know, as part of your process, before we put something out to bid, we come to you, right, for you to authorize us to put something out to bid. So if at your council meeting on Monday, you give the green light to prepare 2 sets of plans, we're still going to have to come back to you before we put it out to bid. And so that would be your stop, if you will, at that time. But when we put it out to bid, we could certainly put it out to bid for 2 projects, or we can do an ad alternate. It's a pretty big ad alternate, so I don't know. We'd probably talk with Brian and figure out, would it be better to bid 2 separately? But we could certainly do that, yes.
Because what I'm trying to, in very, very improper technical terms, say is we have options here that we can do to make this, the opportunities for the full success as optimal.
Sure, you're wanting to try and, there's a possibility of building in some flexibility for the city, that if the financing terms.
That sounds a lot better.
And collectively, you get a comfort level with the deal.
Yes.
If you build in that flexibility now, you're in a better position to take advantage of that, should you decide to.
Okay. Because from what I'm seeing right here, in the real world, not those numbers, but the original numbers that we had, it's not looking great for the whole project. But we want to keep our team. And in order to keep our team, we've got 6.8 sunk cost.
Mm-hmm. So
there's another option. We could go with Section D of the contract that says additional development. Ball Corps shall have the right to develop or enhance at its expense additional areas within the perimeter of the venue area, which development or enhancement will be consistent with and in addition to the overall venue experience for visitors, with the consent of city, and further which consent shall not be unreasonably withheld, conditioned, or delayed. The city may not materially modify the venue during the term without the consent of Ball Corps. Any additional development or enhancement within the venue by Ball Corps will be subject to the city's approval. Okay, so that would be another option if instead of us building the second part, if we agreed to do the 6 million, 6.5, and then Ball Corps took on the top part, then both things could be done now if they were willing to take it on.
If you give them all that revenue up there.
Well, they already are getting the revenue.
No, that's
from,
not. That's projected revenues.
That is the city's.
No.
That is the city's part. That's what it says here It says this is the new city revenues. That's not the total revenues of the project coming in.
Karen, they're not going to build a building for the city to make money. No business would do that.
Well, do y'all not make money in addition to what we'll receive? Because we're only getting the liquor tax part, the city sales tax, the city's share of the expected event venues, the city's share of the planned event.
Yes, the trash pandas do get revenue. Yes, they do get revenue.
They would get revenue too,
But,
so it's not that
but
they
if
get
they
nothing.
build that building, they're going to take our part of the revenue too in order to pay for that building.
It's okay. If they're going to pay for it, I'm okay with them getting the revenue of it.
We also had a conversation early on about the fact that this is a city facility, and Brian may want to weigh in on this, but from the perspective, do we want to have a private entity, Balcor, owning a building? I'm not saying it's not potentially an option, but we did talk about it, and how would that process go forward? Now, Balcor has done some minor capital improvements, right? They have all their ongoing maintenance, but for example, out in Centerfield, there's and I'm not going to know what you've branded it lately, but the Slim Chickens little shed thing, right? So Balcor did all of that at their own expense. They've done a number of the mobile concession things. They do all at their own expense. So there are small little capital projects that they do. This is obviously a different animal. And so we did talk early on about, well, would we want to let Balcor do this? And we informally determined from a legal standpoint we're in a better position of having it be a city facility.
Large liability.
Well,
Exactly.
it's in the contract that they were allowed to do it, so.
I understand, but I don't know that
Right.
that
Well, I can tell
contract
you this, I'm not in
anticipated
favor
something
for it.
that large.
Is anybody else in favor
That's
for
all.
that?
I mean, it may be that we could work through it, but I don't think that was really the expectation.
The intent behind that, I got a question for you, but the intent behind that is not to build a permanent structure that houses people and you have a huge liability if something happens, that it gets into a big legal whack-a-mole of who does what to whom, and we end up spending millions of dollars in court.
Yeah. All I wanted to say to weigh in on that is, if you were to turn to Balcorp and with that proposal, I think the very first thing they would do, not speaking for them, would be there's a provision in the contract that states that you are responsible for all capital improvements, which this would be. So yes, that provision is in there, but it would, like you said, this would be building this on city property, asking them to build a permanent structure which they would not own. So.
Mary Beth, I've got a question about Mrs. Spears' proposal of approving 2 different architectural plans.
Yes.
Could you remind me what the cost would be of the architectural plan for just the base versus the suites?
Just the base, and I don't have the exact numbers, but it's about $600,000 or so. It's under 700. And then for the full set of plans, I want to say it's about 1.2. Now that full set of plans includes the clubhouse, right? So if we were to ask the architect, and I haven't had this conversation with him yet, but if we were to ask him to build 2 sets of plans, I assume we've got, I'll say, the $600,000 cost, and then we've got not probably an additional 1.2, but we're going to have some, whether it's another 800,000 or I don't know. But we're not going to do, it's not going to be both of them, right? But
Right. I'm
it'll
just
be
thinking, so the decision Monday night is going to be, are we approving the base plan, or are we approving the base and suite plan?
right. So we've got 2 possible options that we've worked out pricing for, and pending how this conversation goes on your agenda, we could put one or both of them. And so one would be if they did a set of plans for everything, Clubhouse Plus, and one option is if they just did the plans for the clubhouse. Now, I can try and reach the architect tomorrow and talk with him about a scenario that, Connie was just describing, and see how that might change any of the pricing, and see if I can get that information.
I mean, $600,000 to me is a lot for a speculative plan. I'd certainly approve paying for the base plan, but I would like to see the council actually involved in a capital improvements project meeting where we weigh this project, we weigh road projects, we do a lot of things and prioritize, which is something I think all of us have wanted to do. We have other needs at Homer Park and other things, and before paying for a speculative plan when we haven't decided the priority of that, I would certainly, though, agree to do the base plan on Monday night.
We have to do that.
Well, I guess, so here's my only thing that I'm looking at, okay? And believe me, I am for road improvements. I am for park improvements. I am for all those things that we give to our citizens. And those are things that we have to do. I don't know how you can do it, but how do you generate income off those products? You don't do that, right? You put a road in, people drive on, and it's a service. A project like this brings back dollars to do some of those other things. So when I look at it, that's the way I'm looking at it. And you know, if we have a project that's shovel ready, I think that's the term we use all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, it works a lot better, even if you have to make some adjustments to that, because, you know, as long as I've been on council and when I'm gone and the person that comes after me and whoever else is here, time can never be of the essence with the city if you don't have that, because we move in a different pace because we're bound by legalities. If we already have some of those things in place, we're somewhat more nimble, and, you know, we can move more quickly at the rate that the rates are moving. So, for instance, if we have that and we're ready and we can make a decision, we can make that decision and we can capture these rates. If we were doing the same thing, right, and we would have had plans ready 6 months ago, this model would look different. So that's the point. If we've already got something and it only takes a little bit of time to make that adjustment, then we can secure a rate when it drops. But if we don't and we wait too long, that rate will go back up. So you're in the same cycle. So that's the only reason I would see that we would pay for those things and have it ready. Because if you don't, you know, you'll never make that decision. We'll spend $6.8 million that we have to spend, and, you know, we're spending it for people to go get dressed. That's what we're spending it for, as opposed to having an opportunity to bring more people to the ballpark, and those people buy things outside of this. And one thing that we haven't even talked about that you know, is not even included in these numbers, and I don't know how you could include it. When you build this for 6.8, you know, when it gets appraised in our city assets, it's one price. When you build it and it has 3 other floors to it, it gets appraised at a different price. So that allows us to have a asset that has some equity. So we haven't even talked about equity. And I mean, you know, I think that's something you have to include here. You know, you have an asset that does something or an asset that does nothing.
Yeah, I do have to agree with you. I think I'm a big proponent of Palmer and getting back on that course, but at the same time, the amount of revenue that you can squeeze out of that versus the amount of revenue you can squeeze out of roads, the amount of revenue and the other things compared to what you can get here is negligible.
Are we in the business of providing safety and roads for the citizens and services, or are we in the business of making money?
So
you have to make money to do those things.
We make money by the taxes that we charge the people when we bring in.
What do you think those are?
What is
Those
that?
are taxes, but it's coming at a risk and a cost.
There's
Rush?
always a risk. There is no such thing as zero risk in anything whatsoever, period. Even the ballpark we have now is not zero risk. Nobody thought there was going to be COVID. Nobody. That is a risk. It could come back. There could be something else released. It is a risk. There is no such thing as zero risk. What we have right now could go in the crapper. Literally. There is no such thing as zero risk. Yes, we're in the business of providing city services and providing ways for people to get around, but that has to be paid for somehow. And we're talking about, is this a good business deal to help increase revenues and help increase the amount of monies that can go towards paying those things? That's the same discussion we had 6 years ago, or however many years ago, about the $50 million bill. Mm-hmm. I agree, $20 million, hey, it's not something we need to decide tonight. That's a big freaking decision. And guess what? It ain't 7 of us. It's 4 of us that'll make that decision. I learned that one on the $50 million. There's 7 of us, but there's only 4 that will vote either yes or no. So at the end of the day, it's that. But the other question I have is the timing of the market. How long does the 6.8 give us? In other words, if we need to time the market, if that's something we decided as a group that we wanted to do, is there enough time in the 6.8? And I understand that's a guess, because it could go up. But I don't know how long 6.8 gives us, like construction timeline and getting contracts going, because you got to get the right interest rate, then you got to get contracts let, you got to get bids done, and Lord knows that is not a quick process. So do you have any time at all? Is that juice even worth the squeeze?
They estimated that plans would be done in October. And so, and then we would hope to bid in the fall, October, November timeframe. Mm-hmm. And so based upon, what Rush is describing, if rates were to drop, in August, let's just say, right, or September, if, council wanted to, if the full set of plans were being prepared, right, concurrently, council could, say, hey, staff, we want to take a look at this because rates have dropped. And so that would be, that's our time frame. We could, if it, it looks like rates are going to drop and they haven't dropped in October and y'all wanted to wait another 2 months to see if they dropped, we could, but time is not on our side, given where we are right now.
It's not really.
Beth, two quick questions. So is there any more time involved in developing the plans for the 1-story versus the 4-story?
A little bit. The 4-story takes a little bit longer. Obviously, it's more complicated but in some ways, but in other ways, not so much. It's
not a whole lot of difference there.
Not a whole lot.
Remind me again, if you would. I don't have it in front of me. The cost that council, when they make a decision on Monday night, if they go for the base plan versus the larger plan, what's the difference in price of what's on the agenda for getting the plans done?
I didn't bring those with me. I'm sorry, but I want to say it's roughly about $600,000 for the single level and about 1.2. Don't quote me, but about 1.2 for the full set of plans. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Rush, I don't know if this is a question in terms of rates, but when we're talking about 5.5% now, how much could they drop by November? They don't drop in.
To give you an example, rates always, they fall gradually, but they go up overnight. In March of 2022, a little over 2 years ago, we could have done this project at 3%. So that's, and then also the market is telling us we have, if you keep up with things, we're in this phenomenon is occurring called an inverted yield curve, which I had professors in business school that told me, you might have an inverted yield. You folks might see an inverted yield curve once or twice in your life. These are harbingers of something that's going to happen. They stay around for a few days, maybe a week. We are now 26 months of an inverted yield curve. So this is something that people would say, you can literally invest your money for 3 months in United States Treasuries yielding 5.5%. You can buy 30-year Treasuries yielding 4.5%. Does that make, that's insane. That's so crazy is to be. So what the market is telling us is that rates are going to fall. That short end of the yield curve is going to drop, and we're going to get at some point in time, we have to, because people now can't invest money long term. They're not going to be, but
there's no guarantee when that's going to happen.
When.
That's the key question.
I'll tell you this, if I knew when, I would not be sitting here.
You're exactly right.
That's the truth. But, having said that, Connie, you are absolutely right about, when you try to time the market, that is something that can only be done with preparation. People like me, people like Preston Bolt, people like Johnny Dill, we are very much used to working on the come. We do work when there's going to be a big bond issue. We get paid when it closes, and if it never closes, we don't make a nickel and we don't whine about it. In our business, we say you want to bat about 300, you go to the Hall of Fame. And we close 30% of the things we work on. That's great. But when we have great success, it's when we're prepared. If we start to see rates dropping precipitously, and then we would then start planning on how, what is it we're going to borrow the money for, then that's going to make the timing, part of it. The last thing that, I tell everybody, the city is absolutely positively not going to borrow any money until at least 4 hands go up on that council right there. So that's one thing that we have the ability as a council. If it doesn't look good, if it doesn't smell right, if it doesn't feel right, and the council makes that political decision right then to go or no go, nobody says you have to do it. But it's not unwise to be ready to have a great success and a good execution if you do decide to do it. I would think this is, like I've been through. I think with the market like it is, to make a decision right now to go and borrow this money and do this project might be premature, but you don't have to make that decision yet. Sounds to me like the decision is about what kind of plans are we going to have drawn. Because nobody can make you borrow money.
I had one more question for you about your increase, because in the sheets that we had, it was just kind of a flat number, and it was going to take us 20 years to pay off the bond. Okay, at $1 million for 20 million. Okay, so how soon would we start actually seeing a return? I mean, more than just a little bit of money. If this is an investment and we're waiting to get in the money, but I got to keep paying the debt service, when are we actually making more than the debt service to cover this in any kind of substantial way? In your numbers. I can't.
You're talking with the new part, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just, because to Teddy's point.
That I'm looking at right there is that, initially is about a wash.
When you say a wash, what exactly do you mean?
You're taking in about you're taking in approximately what's going out.
Yeah, on that.
So we're never really making money. So we're never really making money.
No, he's saying
you make your money down the road.
Well, how much further down the road? That's my question.
I mean, in my
year 3,
there, we've got it in a very conservative estimate. I mean, for example, in 2027, you lose $29,000, but in 2042, you make $568,000. So it's increasing each year.
Yeah, when you look,
all things right, like I said,
he's looking at the cash flow.
That you buy in 2024.
When the cash flow
same
goes
price
positive,
is not going to be in effect in.
You're making money.
What?
When the cash flow goes positive, you're making money.
Right, but it's not. Look at how far out we have to go before we start to see the money that we can use to pay for the roads, which was Teddy's point.
In many businesses, you can't expect instant.
Well, it's not instant, but what opportunities are we missing while we're waiting for this investment to pay us money to build the road?
missing any, Karen, because they're not there. There's no opportunity there. These incomes right here are produced if you do something.
Right. So I am saying, if you did this, how long before we could say, I'm definitely making enough money to pay for a road? Because that's what you're telling me. You were doing this for an investment so we can buy things later.
Start making money.
How much?
4.75%.
And that model changes. Just on this sheet that you're looking at, 2030.
2030.
Well, let me ask this. Let me give an analogy. We paid what, $6 million for a mile on Hughes Road to add a lane, roughly. How much more revenue have we gotten off of that? Off of that $6 million of revenue that we spent, which is about what we're talking about here, just base model, $6 million bucks. I know we can't look at exact businesses, but if we were to draw a control volume around Hughes Road, that 1 mile, how much revenue increased over spending that $6 million? Which is a $6 million project, is a road project. How much more revenue did that bring in?
But you
None.
also had the traffic much smoother for the citizens who lived here.
That's great. They were able to get to home
Great.
easier, and they were able to get to work easier. And
that's a benefit to the citizens.
that's an amazing benefit to the citizens. At the same time, they're wearing the road out right now and wearing it down, so that means we're going to have to pave it here sooner, and there's going to be additional cost. And then we got to figure out how to generate that revenue. Where's that revenue coming from?
From the taxpayers who pay for the building of the roads, for the taxes.
I understand,
that
but
we all
there's
come
no
in on.
new revenue. There's no new venues, no new things for them to go do to generate that revenue. We're creating extra bills to pay, but we're not creating extra bill generators to pay the bills.
Well, which was one of my points, how much maintenance is it going to cost to do these extra things? And how much more expenses are we going to have, which has not been addressed?
We've missed you.
And I missed you guys too. I wanted to run downstairs and get those architectural numbers, so I had one of them right, and the other one I was a little low on. For just the clubhouse, the architect fee is $6,085, so $608,500. To do the full set of plans for the entire building would be a little over 1.5 million, so I was off by about 300,000. If, along Connie's line of questioning, if we were to say to the architect, we want you to do the full set, but we also want you to peel off just the clubhouse, it's possible there might be some additional cost, right, beyond the 1.5. So whether that's 1.65 or I'm not quite sure because I haven't had that conversation with him, but I wouldn't expect it would be that much more because it's just a matter of, only pulling out pages 1 through 50, right, of that set and making some adjustments.
Well, I would assume there would be some amount difference because you're going to have to put a roof on the top. Well, I guess you're going to have to put a roof on the top.
Well, my point is this isn't a construction cost. This is just a plan set cost, right? Yes. So there's some changes, but I wouldn't think it would be a significant amount of money.
It's negligible.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I don't know if there's any decision, just to let you know, currently for Monday night's council meeting, both of these architectural plans are currently on the agenda. If council doesn't need to make a decision tonight and wants more time, and you could vote on one of them at that point. I do feel it's critical that one of the two of those be agreed upon Monday night to give Mary Beth the chance to move forward.
I think we all agree that for sure the 6.8 goes. I think the disagreement would be, do we pay the additional for the plans going forward?
Correct.
And for that, I will argue that we do. Again, we've spent money on things before, where we were trying to. I'm sorry. Thank you, Connie. I won't get yelled at by people on TV if we're streaming this. I don't think we are.
We're recording it.
We're recording it, so they'll get me afterwards. But I think we do that again because You're not going to be able to time the market. You just can't. And if we're ready for that to move, we can move forward. I mean, I don't know so the two are, we pay for the base or we pay for the full, is that correct?
Correct.
And so at this point, paying for the base, we know we're going to do that. Paying for the full, we don't know. But can we add to paying for the base and add the additional cost in?
Well,
We did that quickly.
and my question is, Ball Corps is going to participate in helping to pay for the larger project. Would they consider participating in helping to pay for the architecture fee?
I don't think,
I think those are
not-
too many questions to ask.
Okay.
right now, I don't
Okay.
think we're having any contribution from Ball Corps to do
Okay.
any of this.
But we do on the bigger project,
No.
right?
No.
Oh, I thought that we had,
Zero.
no.
None.
No.
These numbers that you generated for us, Rush, do not include any contribution.
Okay.
Right.
My misunderstanding. Thank you.
But I have had many people ask exactly why. Can somebody come and explain to the citizens why exactly we have to cover the cost of the clubhouse itself? There are
Again?
many people. There are many people that are questioning this. Would somebody come forward and explain it?
The easy answer is because it's our property. It's not Ball Corps' property. Would you agree with that?
And it's
That
in the
short answer?
contract, Brian just stood up there a minute ago and said, we are responsible for all capital improvements for the property.
Yeah, and then from the standpoint of why we need to do it, we can go talk to the former general managers and some of the Huntsville City Council as to why the Huntsville Stars are no longer here, because neither the Stars nor Huntsville City thought that either one of them had the responsibility for upkeep of that stadium, and that was basically what drove that thing into the ground.
Well, if you want to know, I mean, if you go back, if you're looking for the facts, when Major League Baseball, in essence, took over or purchased minor league baseball, they came in and put a different set of parameters on all ballparks. And to meet minimum requirements to keep compliant with Major League Baseball's requirements, we in turn have to add the base amount that we were talking about, which would be the visitors clubhouse and storage and some of the other things that are out there. Is that what you were looking for? I mean, I think to make sure that I mean, is that kind of what it was? And just to make sure, just going back to what John was saying, to remind everybody who's listening or will hear this down the road, and I compliment first Ball Corps for everything that they've done to get the numbers that we have, council who put the plan in place, but in their numbers plus lodging tax, we generated about $3.6 million last year directly for this, and the bond payment was $3.1 million. So that's where we are right now. That goes into the capital maintenance fund that Roger has in a mason jar someplace in his office. Not in his office personally, but someplace. But that's how that's working right now.
And we have paid a lot in the maintenance for the stadium. We have paid a lot in maintenance to the stadium. We haven't been neglectful in any way.
Correct. I mean, it's a great asset for the city. With you go back to the number of events. I think it was 375 events you talked about that they had created in addition to minor league baseball over the course of the last 3 years, which is phenomenal. So it's a great asset for the city without question, for the overall community.
All right, so on Monday night's agenda, we're going to put both options for a vote. Is that what
Correct.
everyone wants to have? Can we have an estimate of what it's going to cost to peel off the 6.8 so we know exactly what we're voting for? So
Are we talking about the option, like the clubhouse and the clubhouse plans only versus the clubhouse and the total plans as the two options that are on Mondays? Are we talking about the entire project versus the clubhouse?
So what I'm going to try and we have a clubhouse price already, and we have the 4-story price already. What I'm going to ask the architect, hopefully tomorrow, is to give us the 4-story project, but peeling off the clubhouse as a separate set of plans, because I assume they're going to start with that 1.5 and adjust that a little bit if we just peel off those plans. So you would have, at this point, I'm hoping, 2 options on your agenda. One is just the clubhouse, and one is the full set, pulling off the clubhouse, so that if the market, the rates go down, and at some point before we go out to bid, you want to do the full ball of wax, then you could choose to do that because we'd have the plans. It takes 6 months to get a set of plans prepared.
My question is,
Okay.
you're only, when you say the 2 options, you're only talking about the plans.
Yes.
Not green lighting the project.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, this is just getting plans prepared. And then again, once the plans are prepared and we're ready to put them out to bid, it would come back to the council to decide what you want to bid.
Okay. So do you want to vote first on the bigger plan and then the base plan goes behind it?
I'd rather personally start with the base plan
And
then
get
vote
that-
for the big.
that
That
one.
would be my preference, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so because,
Okay, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Then we'd be approving 2 plans.
yeah,
that
you're
one is
basically,
not necessary.
yeah, so we need to prove one or the other. So one plan is you pay the $6.8 million, you're done, you don't do anything else, and you move on. The other is you pay the $6.8 million plus whatever the additional fee is for those additional plans.
No, I think we're voting first.
$680K
1.5
versus
million.
1.6 million.
1.5 million for the 2 plans.
It's going to be more
Sorry,
than
I've got 4 people
Okay.
talking to me, and I can't even
You
process
got-
one sometimes.
You got 680K or 1.6K or 1.6 million.
8K.
608K versus 1.6 million,
Probably.
I got it. Thank you.
roughly.
Other way around.
Not 6.8.
So we're only voting on the plan.
Yes.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And they want to
Which is a
vote
pretty
on the
big
bigger.
indication of planning.
I just want to make sure I know.
Yeah, so we're
Okay.
going to put this one first,
Because if that one were to fail, then presumably you would.
we need a vote to approve plans for the base.
Correct. It doesn't make sense to approve the smaller one, because
Right.
then if the larger one got approved, you'd have to go back. And,
As soon as I said that, the light.
Builds the suspense.
There you go.
Okay.
Rush, thank you for coming up here.
Thank you, Rush.
Safe travels home.
All right, we're adjourned.